The chandeliers inside the Grand Pacific shimmered like glass stars. Everything looked expensive, intentional, cold. Waiters glided by with silver trays and polite smiles, but none of it could touch Hannah Harper. She stood near the tall window, hands clenched around a glass she hadn't sipped from. Her black dress felt like a cage, tight not just around her body, but her chest, the kind of tight that comes from trying to hold yourself together. David's memorial was supposed to honor his life, but all Hannah could feel was absence. Absence in every breath, every bite she didn't take, every conversation that didn't include his name. Emma, her 10-year-old daughter, sat quietly at the kids' table, lining up grapes in perfect rows, trying to make sense of something she didn't have words for. Around them, voices murmured. Not comforting, just curious. She looks too calm to be a widow. Isn't that her husband's business partner over there? Well, at least she has money. People didn't mean to be cruel, but they were, because they didn't know what to say, and so they said the wrong things. Grief doesn't make you loud. Sometimes it just makes you invisible. And that night, surrounded by family and strangers and false sympathy, Hannah Harper had never felt more alone. It started over lukewarm tea in her parents' kitchen. Linda, her mother, placed a hand over Hannah's and gave her that soft, rehearsed smile, the one she used at funerals and fundraisers. "Just a weekend," she said. "2 nights, tops. Nature, fresh air, no phones, just us, just family." Mark, Hannah's younger brother, chimed in from the corner. He was already scrolling through his phone, probably looking up camping gear. "Lake Esmeralda's beautiful this time of year," he added. "Emma will love it. And you need to get out of that concrete shoebox you call an apartment." Caroline, his wife, sat across the table in a crisp white sweater that looked allergic to dirt. She nodded, sipping green juice like she was on a detox retreat. Time in nature helps reset grief. It's science. Hannah didn't answer right away, because every cell in her body was screaming no. No to tense, no to bugs, no to pretending everything was okay when it wasn't. But then she looked at Emma. Emma, who hadn't smiled in weeks. Emma, who used to jump into David's arms at the door and hadn't danced since the funeral. When Hannah told her about the trip, her little face lit up. "We're going to the park Dad always talked about, with the lake and the bears." Her voice was like sunlight, and for a moment, Hannah's walls cracked. "Okay," she said, "just 2 nights." She didn't know it then, but she had just agreed to step into a trap designed by the people who shared her blood. The sky above Lake Esmeralda was brushed in deep navy and scattered stars. The air smelled like pine needles and roasted marshmallows, and for the first time in months, Hannah Harper laughed. Not the polite, forced kind, but the kind that rises unexpectedly from somewhere deep inside your chest, like a match struck in the dark. Emma and her cousin Jake were huddled around the fire, arguing about who could toast the perfect marshmallow. Jake's was already on fire. Emma shrieked with laughter, holding hers just above the flame with surgical precision. Mark was pretending to be the firewood general, arguing with their dad Robert over how to stack the logs properly. Linda, their mother, wore a floral apron. No one knew why she brought it, but she insisted on camp cricking like the old days. Even Caroline, usually allergic to anything unscripted, was pouring cider from a thermos like she belonged there. Her laugh, crisp, controlled, still sounded human under the starlight. And for a fleeting moment, Hannah believed maybe she had misjudged them. Maybe the awkward silences, the strange looks. Maybe it was just grief. Maybe they were trying. She sipped her tea from a metal cup, watching Emma's face glow in the firelight. It flickered, and for the first time, so did her hope. That night, as Emma curled up beside her in the tent, breathing soft and slow, Hannah whispered into the dark, maybe this was the right choice after all. She didn't know that the same hands passing her marshmallows tonight would leave her for dead by morning. The first thing Hannah Harper noticed that morning was the quiet. No coffee brewing, no dad grumbling about the cold, no Emma giggling with Jake, just wind and trees that seemed to be holding their breath. She sat up in the tent, confused. Emma stirred beside her, blinking. "Is it breakfast yet?" Hannah unzipped the flap and stepped outside, and that's when the silence became a scream. The tents were gone. The cars were gone. The coolers, the chairs, the people, all gone. Only their own small tent remained standing, alone, like an afterthought. "Maybe they went for a hike," she said out loud, but even her voice sounded fake. The kind you say when you're trying to protect your child, not explain reality. Emma's face turned pale. She pointed to the picnic table. "Mom, there's something there." A folded note, held down by a rock. Plain white, no envelope, just torn paper and Mark's handwriting. Hannah's hands trembled as she opened it. "This is for the best. Trust me." That was all it said. 7 words. No name, no explanation, just abandonment wrapped in false comfort. Emma whispered, "They left us." Hannah couldn't speak. Her throat tightened, her ears rang, her knees buckled. She nodded, slow, mechanical. They hadn't forgotten them. They had left them, on purpose. And just like that, the camping trip became a countdown. A mother and child against the wild. Day 1. Hannah Harper took inventory. A backpack, 2 water bottles, 3 half-smashed protein bars, a lighter, a compass, napkins, and a 10-year-old girl watching her mother like she was the last piece of solid ground. "We'll follow the stream," Hannah said, trying to make her voice steady. "Water always leads somewhere." Emma nodded without asking questions. That was the scariest part, how easily she accepted things that no child should have to. They packed the tent and walked. The trees swallowed them whole. Every branch crackled like it was screaming. The world had turned cold and damp and cruel. But Hannah kept walking. They stopped by the stream that evening, set up their little camp again. Hannah split a protein bar in half. "You take the big piece, baby." Emma frowned. "What about you?" Hannah smiled. "I already ate earlier." She hadn't. Her stomach was burning, but her daughter didn't need to know that. Later that night, Emma lay curled in the tent, half asleep, clutching her stuffed fox, while Hannah sat outside in the dark. She watched the stream move slow and silver in the moonlight. Her hands were numb, her lips were cracked, and her stomach had learned to growl quietly, but her heart, it was roaring. By day 3, Emma's skin burned. She wasn't just tired anymore. Her cheeks flushed, eyes glazed. She shivered under the sleeping bag even as sweat poured from her brow. "She's burning up," Hannah whispered to herself, kneeling by the fire pit, watching the flames die, just like her calm. No medicine, no phone, no hospital, only memories, and a mother's fear. She searched the forest like a woman possessed. She remembered her own mother's voice from when she was little, learning which plants not to touch, which bark helped with fever. White willow bark, dandelion, yarrow. She whispered the names like a prayer. Her hands bled from pulling stems too fast. Her knees were muddy. Her voice cracked from calling Emma's name again and again, just to hear her daughter answer back, "I'm okay, Mama, I'm okay." But she wasn't. And then the sky split open. The storm hit with fury. Rain poured down like buckets. Wind ripped through trees like screams. The tent shook. The fire died. Hannah pulled Emma close, wrapped her in every layer of fabric they had, and held her like a shield. Outside, nature howled. Inside, she whispered stories, made up fairy tales. Stories about a fox who found her way home. Stories where no one was left behind. Stories where mothers were magic and daughters never got sick. "Don't be scared," she told Emma, even as her voice trembled. "Just close your eyes. You're safe. Mama's here." But the storm didn't care. Day 10. Hannah Harper had stopped counting days. Time no longer moved in hours or minutes, only in heartbeats, and in the sounds Emma made when she couldn't sleep. The fever had broken. But Emma could barely walk. Her little voice came in whispers. "I'm tired, Mama." "I know, baby," Hannah replied. "We just have to keep moving a little longer." And then she saw it. Smoke. A thin column rising between the trees, too tall for a campfire, too straight to be an accident. Someone was out there. "Emma, do you trust me?" "Always." Hannah strapped her daughter to her back tight and secure. Her legs ached, her lungs burned, but she walked. She walked like every step was a scream. Branches scratched her arms. Her knees buckled. But her mind only repeated one thing: "We're getting out. We're not dying here." By afternoon, they found it an old ranger station, barely standing, but real. Inside, a broken radio, a box of matches, an old newspaper. She remembered something, a tip from a survival book David once read to her. If you see a plane or chopper, make an H on the ground. H means help. Hannah scrambled outside. She laid branches, formed an H, set the paper on fire. Smoke curled into the sky like a final prayer. And then the sound came. Rotor blades. A helicopter hovered, circling. Hannah waved her jacket, screamed with every last ounce of voice she had. And then they saw her. They came down. Emma was safe. Hannah was safe. But the nightmare was far from over. The hospital in Port Angeles smelled like antiseptic and silence. Hannah Harper sat by Emma's bed, watching her daughter sleep peaceful, wrapped in white sheets, as if the forest had been just a dream. But Hannah couldn't sleep, because deep down she knew the real storm hadn't come yet. On the third day, a man in a charcoal suit entered her room. Polished shoes, government badge, cool voice. "Mrs. Harper?" She stood slowly. "Yes?" He extended his hand. "Special Agent James Danvers, FBI." She froze. FBI. He sat across from her and opened a tablet, swiped once, turned the screen toward her, and there it was, the note. "This is for the best, trust me." A scanned image, the same one Mark had left on that picnic table, now on file with the King County Court. "Your brother submitted this," Agent Danvers said, "claiming you wrote it, that you voluntarily disappeared due to emotional distress." Hannah blinked. Her lungs didn't work. "What? He filed for a presumptive death declaration," he continued, "and initiated a $1.5 million life insurance claim. He also presented a will dated 2 months ago, transferring your company Red Pine Coffee to him." Hannah felt ice run through her veins. "That's not my will. Everything I own goes to Emma. I never signed anything new." Danvers nodded. "We know. The signature doesn't match. The notary involved has a history of misconduct, and he's now cooperating." Hannah dropped into the chair. "They planned this?" Her voice cracked. "They left us to die, so they could collect money and steal my business." Danvers didn't reply, just looked her in the eye. "That's what we're investigating." That afternoon, Hannah Harper sat across from a corporate attorney in Seattle, David Kim, sharp suit, sharper eyes. He tapped his pen against a thick folder. "They moved fast," he said. "Too fast." Within 7 days of Hannah's disappearance, Mark had submitted a new will, an affidavit of emotional instability, an insurance claim for $1.5 million, a motion to take temporary control of Red Pine Coffee, and a property transfer request for her house in Queen Anne, all under the assumption that Hannah and Emma were dead. No missing persons report, no search party, not even a fake public plea for help. Just papers, filed in perfect legal order. As if her death had been scheduled. They didn't mourn you, David said quietly. They replaced you. Hannah sat frozen. Fury and heartbreak didn't fight each other. They blended. The betrayal wasn't just emotional anymore. It was on paper. It had signatures, it had dates, it had intention. Her bank account, frozen. Business shares, being restructured. Even the family's lawyer had submitted the fake will claiming Hannah signed it 2 months prior at a location she could prove she never visited. And that's when the truth hit her. They didn't want her broken. They wanted her gone, not silenced, erased. Hannah Harper didn't cry anymore. She didn't freeze. She didn't flinch. Now she worked, side by side with the FBI. She handed over everything. The original will signed 3 years ago naming Emma as sole heir. Text messages from Mark, strange gaps, unusual language. Photos of Emma and David at Red Pine's grand opening. A voicemail, Mark's voice days before the trip. You need rest, Han. Trust us. We've got everything handled. Every detail became evidence. Every smile she once believed in, now a data point in a criminal investigation. Special Agent Danvers sat across from her taking notes. His expression unreadable, but his voice carried purpose. We're filing charges, he said. Forgery, conspiracy, insurance fraud, and child endangerment. What they did to you, to Emma, was not just cruel, it was criminal. Hannah nodded. She didn't feel victorious. She felt clean, like finally the rot was being scraped away. She opened her laptop, clicked a folder, proof they planned it. Inside were screenshots, dates, calls, recordings. Justice wasn't blind. It just needed receipts. The conference room was cold, neutral walls. Venetian blinds. Water bottles lined up like props. Nothing personal, nothing kind. Hannah Harper entered first. Behind her, Emma, holding her mother's hand, hair in 2 tight braids, eyes sharp, unblinking. Across the table sat the people who once tucked her into bed, who toasted her wedding, who promised to protect her child. Now they sat like strangers in court-issued chairs. Mark looked down. Caroline crossed her legs tightly, spine stiff, eyes unreadable. Linda fidgeted with a tissue she hadn't cried into. Robert cleared his throat but said nothing. No one said, "We're sorry." No one said, "We were wrong," because the weight of what they'd done filled the room without a sound. Emma didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her eyes swept over them the way only a child who's been betrayed too early can look. Quiet, final. When Mark finally opened his mouth, his voice cracked. "We thought you gave up." Hannah didn't blink. "With my daughter?" Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Silence. Then she added, "You weren't scared for me. You were scared I'd survive." And no one could deny it. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, law students, strangers who had followed the case online. But Hannah Harper sat still, hands folded, eyes locked ahead. This was no longer about emotion. This was about exposure. The judge called the first witness, Martin Shaw, the notary. He walked to the stand, pale, shaking, his voice thin but clear. "Yes," he said, "I notarized the will. No, she wasn't there." Gasps rippled through the room. The judge didn't flinch. "Why did you do it, Mr. Shaw?" Martin swallowed. "Because I was paid. Because I was promised a portion of Red Pine coffee if I helped." He glanced toward Mark. Didn't look long. Then came Special Agent Danvers. The room stiffened. "Our investigation confirms the will was forged." The signature was inconsistent. The document was created using a template from an online estate kit, filed days after the Harpers left Miss Harper and her daughter in Olympic National Park. Silence. The FBI had traced everything. The altered life insurance documents, the edited timestamps, the rushed financial transfers, the text trail planning the weekend trip. Every digital footprint pointed to intent. Not grief, not panic, premeditation. It took 6 weeks. 6 weeks of hearings, testimonies, documents, and tears behind closed doors. The media called it the family that buried blood for money. But for Hannah, it wasn't a headline. It was her life. On the day of sentencing, she didn't dress for war. She wore gray, simple, clean. Emma wore blue, hopeful. The courtroom was hushed. The judge read the verdicts slowly, like stones dropping into water. Mark Harper, 15 years in federal prison. A murmur. He didn't look at Hannah. Didn't look at Emma. He stared at the floor where his future used to be. Caroline Harper, 12 years, for aiding for falsifying documents and for endangerment of a minor. She blinked but didn't cry, as if tears had dried up weeks ago. Linda and Robert Harper, each sentenced to 10 years for conspiracy and insurance fraud. Not a gasp, not a plea, just silence. Justice had no celebration, only consequence. Emma squeezed Hannah's hand, and that's when Hannah finally spoke. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. She leaned down to her daughter and whispered, "They failed." Emma looked up. "What do you mean?" Hannah smiled, not with joy, but with truth. "They tried to erase us, and we're still here." The new house wasn't big, a single story, white walls, creaky floorboards, but it had a garden, and every morning it echoed with the sound of something Hannah hadn't heard in a long, long time: laughter. Emma laughed as she watered her sunflowers, spraying more water on herself than the soil. She laughed as she painted the little fence blue and got it all over her fingers. She laughed when pancakes flipped wrong, when music played too loud, when their cat Ginger kept stealing socks from the laundry room. Healing, Hannah realized, isn't quiet. It's messy, colorful, alive. She had started rebuilding her small coffee business from home. Emails, designs, new packaging. It wasn't about success anymore. It was about reclaiming her voice. And each morning, Emma would sit at the little kitchen table and draw. Draw butterflies, draw trees, draw her and her mom in a forest, but this time with a path leading out. They wanted her to stay silent, but Hannah told her story. Not for pity, not for fame, not for revenge. She spoke to protect the next woman who might be led into the woods under the word family. Television crews came. Podcast hosts called. News headlines ran bold, left to die, but she walked out alive. And yet, Hannah never played the victim. She never cried on camera, never screamed for attention. She only shared what happened. And when someone asked, "Did you ever forgive them?" she didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. She said, "No, but I don't carry them anymore. I carry Emma." On the porch of their small white house, Emma sat curled in a chair reading. The sun hit her hair just right. A breeze carried the scent of fresh lavender. Their garden swayed gently in the wind. Hannah stood by the doorway, coffee in hand, heart calm for the first time in what felt like forever. She watched her daughter smile at the page. Alive, safe, free. She whispered almost to herself, but loud enough for the world to hear, "We're here. We survived. And no one can take that away from us." She stepped outside, took a seat beside Emma, closed her eyes. And for the first time, Hannah didn't feel like a memory. She felt real, present, unbreakable, because now they weren't ghosts anymore. Sometimes the people who hurt you the most carry your last name. But survival isn't just about making it out alive. It's about reclaiming your voice and building a life where you never need to whisper again. You don't owe your peace to those who broke you. You owe it to the version of you that refused to give up. Because healing doesn't always begin with forgiveness. Sometimes it begins with choosing yourself. If this story touched your heart, If you've ever felt betrayed, silenced, or left behind, then you are not alone. Hit subscribe to join Whispers of Life, where every week we share real stories that remind us you're stronger than what tried to break you. Don't just scroll past. Let's grow together, one story at a time.